By the time I was 18 years old, I had made over $100,000. Everyone I knew at the time in my high school was stressing about starting college in the coming months while I was literally sitting on more money than I even knew what to do with. But by the time that I turned 21, almost every single dollar of it was gone. This is the story of how I started an online business when I was 15, got a taste of great success, but didn't have the maturity to handle it and was left with nothing but brutal life lessons. I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset ever since I was a kid. I would always look for ways to make money. I remember one time I literally got in trouble because I was selling fidget spinners to kids at my school in 7th grade. I got pulled into the principal's office. It was a whole thing. All in all though, I was just always looking for ways to make money when I was younger. So about in my 8th grade year in middle school, I met this kid who I played soccer with, and he was reselling sneakers at the time, and he was like, you should start to try this out. It's pretty fun. We were sneakerheads at the time too. I was super into Jordans. Yeezys at the time were huge. So as me and my friend got closer, I would go over to his house. His mom would bring us to the mall. We would camp out at the mall and wait for Jordans to drop, sitting outside a Foot Locker at 5 in the morning. I would go for online sneaker drops such as Yeezys, new Jordans that came out. I really had barely any money. I was in my freshman year of high school at this point. So the money that I was using to fund these drops or buy the shoes off these drops was the little money that I had saved from birthdays or the little bit amount of money that my parents were willing to lend me once I told them that I wanted to start getting into sneaker reselling. Years of this go by and I start to really find a good footing with it, right? And I'm making consistent money. Come the end of my sophomore year, I began to stray away from traditional reselling, which at the time was going for drops that were very exclusive, and that was the reason that they had such high resale value, right? You could get a pair of Yeezys for $220 retail, and sometimes they would go for upwards of $500 just because they were so hard to get your hands on at that retail price. And that was pretty much the business model that I was, making money off of for the first 2 years of my reselling career. And then I began to get into something else, which I like to call brick flipping. Now, brick flipping, it is flipping shoes that are not nearly as exclusive. Matter of fact, brick flipping, what I would do is I would just go to the mall. I would go into every sneaker store at the mall, including Foot Locker, Champs, everything like that. I would look at every single shoe in that store and pull up the SKU number on StockX or online and check what they were going for online and see if I could get them for cheaper in person or online or at the store or with discount codes or whatever. With these sneakers, or what we called bricks at the time, which were the ones that were just sitting at the mall, they would only cost maybe, $120 max, and you'd usually only be looking to make $10 to $20 profit on a pair of these quote unquote bricks. Since they were so much more accessible, you would be able to buy so much more of them at a time, and this way of reselling became insanely lucrative for me, and I genuinely think that at the time I was one of the pioneers of this method of reselling. At this point, I had a YouTube channel and I was pretty popular on social media for reselling. I eventually started my own Discord group where I taught people how to resell, get into reselling, and specifically how to find quote unquote bricks. And then I slowly started to build this Discord group up. I was charging $20 per month and I had hundreds of members. So I was making thousands of dollars per month off of my Discord group, additionally to thousands of dollars per month off of reselling itself. Now this is going into my, later half of my junior year when things really started to take off to the point where my parents said, holy shit, like what the fuck are you doing? I had so much money, and this was the beginning of the end for me. Money literally didn't feel real. First thing I bought was my car, and I spent a shit ton of money modding my car out. Approximately, I have actually had it in my notes since I started modding my car years and years ago. I've probably approximately spent a little over $22,000 worth of mods on my car on top of the $30,000 that it actually cost to buy. So that was a huge chunk of change right there. I felt like the fucking man, a hot shot. In the wide scheme of things, $8,000 to $10,000 a month isn't really that much, but when you are 17, 18 years old, I tell you guys, I felt like a fucking millionaire. Anything that was under $20 felt free. Matter of fact, anything that was under $50 felt free. I never checked my bank account. I spent so much. I went shopping. I was door dashing, ordering food. I had a girlfriend at the time. We would go out to eat. I would take my friends to go out to eat. We would run up the bill. The bill would come down. I would pay for it every single time. I was blowing all of this money. And like I said, I had a passion for the streetwear and the sneakers too. I was buying a shit ton of designer clothing, Supreme, expensive sneakers, Off-White, Jordans, the most exclusive Yeezys for resale value off StockX. I was just throwing money out like there was no fucking tomorrow because I ultimately had no sense of money. I just gained this complete desensitization to monetary value. And that is one of the biggest lessons that I have learned from this entire thing. Fast forwarding now to where I'm 22 years old, I didn't really understand the value of the dollar, I would say, until about a year ago, when I went truly completely broke, to the point where I would go to bed hungry some nights because I literally couldn't afford food. It took me 3.5 years to the point where I was spending as much money as I was just talking about, to where I went to bed hungry because I couldn't afford food, and I literally had less than $10 to my name. Still, when I was making this money, I was acting like a hotshot. I was being flashy. I started to adopt this twisted fucking mindset that I'm so ashamed of, where I felt like how much money you made as a man equaled your personal value as a person, and I really did start to begin looking down on my peers. I truly thought that I was better than every single person in my friend group, and when I was in public, just as a 16 or 17-year-old, I would look around and I would think, man, look at all these scrub adults. I probably make more than all these scrubs in here. I literally used to think I just was better than everyone. My ego was through the roof, and it took me years and years and years and losing it all to come to this realization. And I ultimately think that losing it all was what needed to happen to me in order to grow as a person. So now, come towards the end of my high school career, I don't want to go to college. I tell my parents I'm not going to college. I want to pursue business. I mean, why wouldn't I? I was making money hand over fist. I end up moving to Florida, across the country. I want to pick up my bags. I want to move across the country. I want to pursue business. I want to figure something out. I don't want to work a normal job. I don't want to have a 9 to 5. I don't want a boss. I want to be my own boss, and I'm going to become a millionaire from business. Packed up my bags, drove across the country with no plan, where I ended up completely going off the rails, losing it all. I was forced to liquidate my Roth IRA and all my investment accounts that had tens of thousands of dollars in them. And that brings me into my closing statements, where I'm going to summarize really the lessons that I've learned over these years and from this experience. The biggest thing, how you spend is more important than how much you make. Obviously, how much you make is important. You want to make as much as you can, but how you spend is more important. If I could go back when I had this much money, this is what I would have done. I would have stayed modest with a car, maybe just a used Honda, not some shitty beat up car, but just something to get me from point A to point B. I would have invested probably 90% of the money that I made, because as a 17-year-old, I could have easily lived off of $1,000 a month with no bills, living at home with my parents. If I had played my cards right, I would have literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to my name invested right now that would have grown over time, and it is a huge regret of mine. But the thing is, I know that one day I'm going to have my next breakthrough. Not only did I learn so much about money, but I learned how to operate a business. I experienced every single up, down, and in between of owning a business, from making a lot of money to losing it all, to gaining clients, to losing clients, to getting scammed, to, fucking all of these different ups and downs I learned. From these experiences, I gained something that money can't buy, and that is wisdom. So when I do have my next breakthrough, because I know that I will, and I know I will start to make a lot of money again off of something that will stick, because ever since I've lost everything, I have been throwing all of these different business ideas at the wall, trying all sorts of different shit. Day trading, e-commerce, in-person businesses, a pressure washing business, paver seal, ad agencies, Roblox, fucking YouTube shorts channels. I have tried all of these things, and I've ended up giving them all up in the end, but I know that one day something that I find a true passion for will stick again, and this time when I find that breakthrough again, I will know what to do with that money. Overall, guys, making 6 figures when I was 18 gave me an ego, and losing it all by 21 gave me my brain. And when that next 100K comes, and it will, I won't just know how to make it, but I'll know how to keep it too. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.